Hello, Deborah. Just watched CC6 and amazing work. I love it. Let me see my notes. I would have him sit back a little bit further just so he really has that full extension, and then you can prompt for that elbow back and pull it back. And just, he leans over, which is tough because he's really tall, but you know, always try prompting the straight back. Great work on the laminate. I checked your pen form, so I think you were already on it with him, but either for the next video, if you could use a clear laminate or film from behind. Obviously I could pick up on a lot that he really wasn't mispoking because you were just flowing very nicely. And yeah, once you moved the camera a little bit, I could see your arm, but I typically always want to be able to see your other arm that you're not holding the board with, just so I can see how much you're prompting. But you weren't doing gestural, which is cool. And then also, is he able to see himself in the camera? I noticed a couple times he was looking up, so I would try either flipping the phone or if you're behind him. I loved your prompts with the eyes and the continuation and kind of giving him the gas, as we say. I wouldn't have done any more spells once he started strong with the orange and the greens. And yeah, he's doing really well. When it came to the dysregulation, it was awesome that you noted that you're more aware of kind of the red face, the dilated eyes, all of that. And it was a little more intense of the kind of hand shaking. So I would be mindful at what point in the session did that all happen, you know, like was it towards the end, was it the middle, maybe he was just getting tired. And then also there were a couple times that he seemed a little more dysregulated when you were doing the spell words. So again, I would just stick with the greens and oranges to give him more of that cognitive challenge, especially once his motor was going so well and barely any mispokes. And sometimes when you up that cognitive, it helps them a little more, stay a little more regulated. Also too, you know, if it's middle, towards the end of the session, or even the beginning, if it's possible for his body to kind of stay in the room or around the room, I would encourage him to get up and move around so he's not just kind of sitting there waiting. Or while you're reading, if he does want to stay seated, I would try some fidgets or the paint by stickers or like adult coloring sheets or something just to keep his hands a little busy. Also too, sometimes, I mean, your lessons on the crystal singing bowls, I'm sure you're pretty well versed with different guided meditations and stuff, but you know, sometimes if I see people getting a little more up, I won't really draw too much attention to it, like, all right, you know, you got this, like, calm down. I would just say, hey, let's do 5 deep breaths, and whether or not, you know, motor wise they're able to really do it, I would just say, I'm gonna do them with you, you know, focus on me, focus on my breath, we're just gonna take a little break. And I typically am like, all right, 1, and I might say breathe in, and out, and 2, and I just really overextend my breaths to just hope that my even regulation goes down and can translate over to him. And then what else? You know, board placement was great. Awesome that you're prompting, pull back on prompting. I love your goals. Definitely would start asking for more complete sentences. yeah, your voice was great. That's awesome that he wanted to keep spelling. And yeah, I mean, it's really tough, the self-injurious stuff, but you know, typically I just try not to talk about it or draw attention to it and just keep pushing through, or say, let's try and stand up and do some purposeful motor, or even something as simple as putting the pencil on the table and saying like, hey, can you hand me the pencil, just so it's more of a gross motor task and he's able to successfully complete it. And yeah, it was good that you did a little more spells regulation wise, but at that point I would have just done some greens. And then also be mindful, maybe, you know, his endurance and stamina is building, but maybe just stick with 4 questions and then a chunk. And once you start doing the complete sentences, I would maybe even do 3 questions and a chunk, because you just have to think about that ocular motor and that concentration and how much strain it causes. And yeah, when their biggest challenge is regulation, you know, that's something that I always start off with, and I'm sure I'm a broken record with this, but I'll always say like, hey, you know, I'm happy to be here with you for 45 minutes. We're going to do a super interesting lesson, and the goal here is I'm gonna read, and we'll do 4 questions and then read, and halfway through, if you need, we'll take a motor break, and I encourage you to have a fidget or something while we're spelling, or roam around the room if you need. But these are the expectations, and I promise I'll stick with it as long as you know, work hard and stick with it as well. And then usually when they're super dysregulated, I just completely ignore it and just keep reading. I might even go even lower to a whisper, and then I might pull back on the amount of questions that I'm asking in between the chunks. And yeah, unless they're like literally really banging their head hard on the table or the wall, I really try not to ever physically intervene or try to say too much to what's happening. Because a lot of the times, you know, it's those insides don't match the outsides. Some of my most seem to be dysregulated spellers will just spell like, keep going, it's just my body. And then the opposite, sometimes when they're laughing uncontrollably and I check in, they're like, yeah, I'm really anxious right now. So then that's when I would say, let's do a gross motor purposeful task, or a VACT. Or I might even take a break from the lesson and read. I always enjoy reading blogs or books, sections from other spellers. It seems to regulate and motivate every speller I've ever worked with. And yeah, keep up the good work. Shoot me a text if you have questions.